Hi, my name is Kristen Jankowicz-Schrock. I'm an author and a DMC designer. In this video, we're going to take a detailed look at some surface hand embroidery using DMC's very beautiful satin floss and some other specialty threads. When I was really little, I used to watch my mom work on samplers and really perfectly execute every one of her embroidery stitches. So I try to copy all of those. And as years have gone on, both of us have been really blown away by the evolution of both the stitches and the threads. It really enhances the look of all of your work. I kind of took it upon myself as a personal challenge to come up with a design where I could incorporate all of my favorite stitches with some of my favorite products. One of them, which I mentioned before, is the satin floss. It is so silky and beautiful to work with that it really makes anything come to life and literally pop off of your needleworking fabric. We're going to take a look at this octopus. One of the things that's so great about the satin floss is the sheen. First of all, I'm going to thread a needle. I like to use the number 24 chenille needle. On this really tight weave fabric, the very pointy tip helps me to pierce through. And I'm only using 3 strands of the satin floss here, but I like to have a little bit bigger eye on my needle because it really opens up the fabric and makes a hole large enough that I can pull my thread through without too much stress on it. I already have my pattern transferred nicely onto the fabric, but I'm going to draw a little guide so that I can do the shading and blending technique with the yellow and the green. So I'm going to take a look at about where the shadow would naturally fall on the octopus's head. And I'm just going to draw a little guide. So I want this left side to be mostly green, and I'm going to fill the rest of him in with yellow. Then what I'm going to do is take my green floss. Normally I'd start at an end, but for a demonstration I'm going to kind of start at the middle, and I'm going to pull my floss straight through. I'm going to make my first stitch right on this line, and that's going to be my guide. Rather than doing a perfectly traditional stitch where all of my stitches are parallel to each other, I'm going to kind of fan them out so they're closer together on the inside and wider on the outside. So I'm going to do kind of an enlarged version. Of course your stitches would be closer together, but I want to give you a good idea about how to accomplish this look yourself. See, I'm leaving a little bit of space in between my stitches, and then they're almost touching towards the center. And I'm going to kind of leave some distance between where my stitches end, all around this line. So I had a really long one, now I'm going to come up a little bit shorter. And you can see how beautifully the satin floss is filling in that area. The coverage is so nice, it goes a lot more quickly than you would expect it to. Now we're going to pretend that I've done this whole green section of the octopus's head. To finish off his look, I'm going to thread another needle with some yellow satin floss. Using the same idea of stitching very closely towards the inside and expanding and fanning out a little bit as we go around, I'm just going to make my stitches on either side of the green satin floss so that they almost become one. And if your floss actually separates some of the stitches that you've already made, I think that that's even better. It makes a very clean, beautiful blend. This is a really tight weave fabric, so you do need to pull a little bit to get your needle through. You can already see how beautifully this bright, vibrant thread is picking up the light. And already in this short amount of stitching that we've done, you can see how the colors really blend, and it's a nice shading technique from the outside edge towards the inside of my octopus. Another floss that I really love to use is the light effects. This gold is simply beautiful. This is so metallic, it just radiates off the fabric. I'm going to do another slight adaptation of another traditional stitch. Here I'm going to do the lazy daisy, but I'm going to elongate the petals a little bit so that it looks more like a starfish than a very rounded flower. And I'm going to show you how we do that. I'm going to start by coming up through the center point of one of my starfish. I'm going to make a big loop and come straight back down into that same hole. For this stitch, I'm using 2 strands of the Light Effects floss. Now I'm going to hold on to the loop with my fingers, which makes it very easy to come up at the tip of one of the arms. And then I'm going to pull my thread straight. Now I like to either use my needle to spread out my loop a little bit or separate my strands of floss, and I can pull those to manipulate them so that it's perfectly straight. Now that I've got my arm exactly as I'd like it, I'm going to tack it down with another stitch back into that same hole, but on the other side of my loop. We're going to try one more. Once again, I'm going to come back up through the center point, make a big loop that I'm going to hold with my fingers through the middle. Before I pull that all the way through, I'm going to come up again on one of the other arms. Okay, pull it through. That one turned out well. And then we're going to go straight back down. Now this is much less loopy than you would traditionally see with a lazy daisy, but I like to pull the loops pretty straight and elongated so that I can really get that effect of my starfish. Let's take a look at the finished design. The satin stitch is so beautiful and dimensional on its own that I like to use some other really strong stitches to help emphasize it. One of my favorites is the stem stitch. Here you can see that I used it on the coral, also around parts of the octopus's body, like his eyes and tentacles. The French knot is absolutely perfect for that. In addition, I liked the chain stitch for the bubbles. The back stitch worked really perfectly for me to outline some specific details. And here I used the blanket stitch for water. It's a little bit different than you would traditionally see it because I elongated some of these stitches up to give it that organic aquatic feel. Let's take a look at what else satin floss can do. This pumpkin is one really fun example. He also just looks like he's glowing and popping off of the page. This artist used a very similar blending technique of the two shades of orange satin floss. It gives him that extra dimension. It also looks really spectacular here in the squares, which is just your traditional straight satin stitch. This bird is another beautiful example. I love using the satin floss to emphasize feathers or living creatures. He looks so vibrant. Even this gray thread, which isn't the brightest color that you would think of, in contrast to the really soft, matte background, pops off the page. He looks like he could just take flight. Now you can do surface hand embroidery on the needlepoint fabric as well. You're not always restricted. So here you can see some really innovative, neat examples, as well as some very loose, free-form threads here at the top of the storefront. I think that that's so beautiful and creative. We're going to take a look at one more storefront where these flowers just jump off of the canvas. They are so shimmery and bright. The satin floss is just so lush. It looks like it has this richness and your eye really goes to the center of attention. You can use DMC satin floss to highlight any of your needlework. It comes in a variety of 60 different colors. You can also use the specialty threads to emphasize any of your areas of interest. I especially liked using them on my octopus. The light effects threads come in 36 different colors, and the color variations come in 36 as well, so you can pair it with any of your needlework projects. For the complete step-by-step instructions on how you can create all of these gorgeous embroidery stitches yourself, visit our embroidery basics video at the website dmc-usa.com.